Hello everyone. Today our presentation will divide it into 5 parts. The first one is introduction. English has changed globally in a distinctive way, adapting to local cultures and histories. Today we will compare two South Asian varieties, Sri Lankan English and Nepal English. While Sri Lankan English emerged from British colonial rule, becoming deeply institutionalized and nativist, Nepal English develops through allied education and globalization, remaining more internationally oriented. We will explore key differences in their history, linguistic features, present status, from Sri Lankan English's role as a post-colonial language to Nepal English's position as an aspirational tool for mobility. By contrasting these varieties, we gain insights into how colonization policy and globalization shape global English. For next part is history context. So for Nepal English, um, English entered Nepal in the 17th century through interactions with British forces, notably where Gurkha soldiers trained in English. However, its formal introduction as an educational language occurred in 1854 with the establishment of Durbar High School by the Rana rulers, initially reserved for allied families. This marked English as a symbol of prestige and power accessible only to the ruling class. English education expanded after the 1951 politic shift, which ended the Rona regime and opened education to the public. The establishment of Tribhuvan University in 1959 further prioritized English in higher education. A significant surge occurred post 1990 with democratic reforms leading to the proliferation of private English medium schools. Unlike Sri Lanka, Nepal was never colonized by the British, so English emerged as a foreign language rather than a colonial legacy. So for the Sri Lanka English, English arrived in Sri Lanka with British colonization in 1802, when Ceylon became a colony with English as the official language. This colonial imposition established English as the language of administration, education, and power, which deeply embeds it into the society. After independence in 1948, English remained the actual official language until 1956, when the Official Language Act made Sinhala the sole official language. As official recognition was restored in 1987 as a linked language under the Constitution, reflecting its role in bridging Sinhala and Tamil communities post-conflict. Unlike Nepal, Sri Lanka's English usage stems from a prolonged colonial history, and also for its current trajectory, English in Nepal has gained momentum since the 2008 abolition of the monarchy and the 2015 constitution, which reflects neoliberal influences and globalization. It is increasingly integrated into education and daily life, though it lacks official status in the constitution. So for Sri Lankan English, it retains a strong presence in governance, judiciary, and media and education. Despite not being an official language, its evolution into Sri Lankan English reflects both colonial roots and the post-colonial adaptation. So compared with colonial influence, timeline, and policy shifts, Sri Lankan English is a direct product of British colonization, whereas Nepali English developed without colonial rule, emerging through allied education and globalization. For tagline, Sri Lankan English has a longer history over 200 years, tied to colonial governance, while Nepali English forms history is shorter since around like 1854 with rapid growth post 1990. For the policy shifts, Sri Lanka experienced a reduction in English status post-independence, followed by a partial reinstatement, while Nepal's English use has steadily increased without official constitutional backing. So for historical context insight, Sri Lankan English is a recognized nativist variety originating from British colonization and institutionalization in administration, law, and education. Despite post-independence policy shifts, Sri Lankan English distinct features reflect the core characteristics of Alta Circle. English is primarily developed through settler colonization and administrative implantation. So for Nepal English, a foreign language was introduced through alert-driven adoption and globalization. It functions primarily as an EFL acquired through formal education for international communication, knowledge access, and social economic advancement. Although growing, it lacks historical institutionalization and widespread nativization characteristic of outer circle varieties. So that's all about the historical context parts.
Now we move on to the part 2, the linguistic features, and this part included the three perspectives and the main references from these journals. And this session compares how Nepali English and Sri Lanka English differs in their pronunciation patterns. The first, in Nepali English, there are two main features. The word simplification. Speakers often do not clearly distinguish between the long and short words, and as a result, the words like sit or put and shoot may sound the same. And the consonation, there is also confusion between the s and sh, like she and she may sound the same. And in contrast, the Sri Lanka English displayed more systematic and patterns, like the default sounds like e and of are replaced with long vowels e and o. For example, the face becomes face and go becomes go. And the second, the consonant it pronunciation, the past tense suffix it is always pronounced ud, using the neutral vowel in all unstressed final syllables. And vu and wo merged into vu. So the wine and wine sounds exactly the same. So to sum up, the Nepali English simplifies the sounds, while Sri Lanka English follows more regular and rule-based pronunciation patterns. And now let's look at the morphological features focusing on creative words formation in both varieties. On the left side, we have the Nepali English. One common pattern is adding u to show the affixation. So this comes from the Nepali usage where the words like nani becomes nanu to sound more caring or close. So this same pattern is applied to English-based words. For example, the dad becomes dadu, the mom becomes mami, and the baby becomes baby. So now on the right side, we have the Sri Lanka English, which shows a different kind of creativity. So here the Sinhala words are turned into verbs by adding fy. For example, this word becomes at the fy to meaning to go to a lot of troubles and achieve nothing, and this word add fy becomes to more or waging supported, and this supported by these researchers. So to sum up this part, both varieties creatively blend English with local language forms that they do it different purposes and they have their own functions. Okay, now we move on to the third linguistic features, which is lexical features. First, we're focusing in the Nepali English. And first, as mentioned by Corilla 2021, the Nepali English has been influenced by English and mainly through the exposure to Indian media and like the movies and TV shows. And this influence is reflected in the vocabulary. For example, here are 4 examples, and both are influenced by the English. Have their special meanings, and the Nepali English also have its unique meaning, like the words from Nepali culture. Like the rice fighting ceremony and examples here are taken from the Nepali, and it also have its own unique calculation systems. Like the Lanka means 100,000, and 10 Lanka means million, and Koro means 10 millions, and this is supported by Corilla 2021. And also according to the Devon, there are 5 types of semantic changes that distinguish Nepali English from British or American English. So let's go through them briefly. And the first one, semantic broadening. The words expand in meaning. For example, the bored can mean not only not interested, but also frustrated or announced. And romantic can mean not just love-related, but also simply nice or pleasant. And semantic narrowing, the word degree in British English refers to any university qualification, but in Nepali English, it usually refers only to the master degree. And amelioration, the words that are negative in standard English become positive. For example, the city or danger can mean someone clever or talented in Nepali English. And the pejoration, the opposite happens here. The words like sexy, which are neutral or positive in standard language, carry negative connotation in Nepali English. And the last one, semantic shift. Some words are used with completely different meanings. For example, the passport means to graduate, not to fade, and the handle means steering wheels. And then look at the lexical features of Sri Lanka English. On the left side, we can see that Sri Lanka English includes many unique English compound nouns, which are recorded in the Sri Lanka English Dictionary. For example, the agency post office refers to a private post office, and the Burden village describes the Sikhala villages near Tamil areas, and the jump seat means a foldable seat on the bus, and the line rooms refers to the housing for estate laborers. And these examples show how SLE uses compound words to describe the local conceptions that don't have the exact equivalence in standard English. And in addition to that, the SLE also includes the Sinhala English called colloquial blends. Some examples include the borrow parts, which means the presenting or putting on airs, and the pastoral party means a traditional informal music gathering. And these expressions reflect how local culture and English are creatively blended in the casual usage. And now if we look at the right side, we can see another key feature of SLE. It tends to be highly formal in writing, especially in letters to the editor. As shown in these researchers, the writers often use very polite phrases like respected sir, highly appreciate, once again, I thank you. So such expressions reflect a high level of familiarity and differences in SLE writing style. So finally, the study also highlights the usage of Sinhala borrowings in formal writing. The writers prefer use culturally familiar terms like Jehama Pasala, which refers to the Sunday religion schools in Buddhist community, rather than English equivalents. And at the end of this part, let's wrap up with some final insights about where these differences revolve about the Nepali English and Sri Lanka English. So first, both varieties reflect the distinct patterns of English localizations shaped by each country's social linguistic status and cultural influence. And the Nepali English, for example, is still an emerging variety, so its features are mostly found in informal spoken usage and is strongly influenced by Indian English. And in contrast, the Sri Lanka English has developed into a more stable and institutionalized variety. So it shows systematic phonological rules, clear word formation patterns, and is widely used in formal writing and daily life and the media. And this makes the SLE more constant and formally recognized. And finally, these differences reflect each country's position in the world English's model. Like the Nepal belongs to the expanding circle where English is a foreign language, and Sri Lanka belongs to the outer circle where English functions as a second language. So these differences in stages directly influences how English is adopted and used, and then shaped by the local context. So overall, by comparing phonological, morphological, and lexicon, we can see how the local culture, language, context, and the social rules give rise to the unique English varieties that go beyond standard in the standard English.
Let me introduce the third part, present status among speakers and other aspects. Let's first look at Nepali. According to the latest statistics, the country includes 124 languages, and all languages spoken as mother tongue in Nepal are the languages of the nation. And we can see Nepali was used most frequently, and English is the second most frequently used language in the country. As for its user, young people are the main English user. Both males and females would use English. Their proficiency would vary from very limited to fully proficient. And fully proficient users often work in private sectors. And different employment field would use English at a different degree. Tourism, education, and a government field would use English much more frequently than other fields. About education, we can say that all private and technical schools would use English to teach students, and teachers would take English or English as a medium of instruction. A great opportunity for students to be involved in the global competition. And parents, working class parents want their children to have English education, and they wish their children can have a better job in the future. This is a picture of a private school you can see here, and English speaking is only allowed in this school. Other languages is not allowed. For the regulative use, English is used in legal references and court proceedings, mostly in Nepali, but code switching with English is also common. And the document would use both languages. Here is a picture of Singapore. We can see that it employs more than one language. And the vehicle number plate would switch to English. It can reflect the internal motivation for the English or the neoliberalism. And when we consider it in its literature, we can say that English literature in Nepal began in the early 20th century. Writers would embed Nepali cultural, political, and historical content in their English works, and it also would publish abroad, try to get much more attention. When we consider to Sri Lanka, we can say that in this country, its national language is Sinhala and Tamil, and English was taken as a linking language according to its constitution. And its user for the Burgher community, although it was not a large population in the country, but English has been taken as their mother tongue with a long history. And for most Sri Lanka, English is a second or third languages. And when we consider its education, we can say that after the war in 2009, the policies would focus on trilingualism, and English was taken as a neutral life skill. The country would promote English as a teaching language due to several reasons. First, to improve employment. Second, expand access for rural students. And the third one, to unite Sinhala and Tamil learners. But the policy also faced with much challenges. In 2018, 60% of students failed in their English exam, and within the students who passed, 50% only got satisfactory, and the teachers, due to the not enough training, they commonly are equipped with low English, and for the material, it's only a poor translation from the original one, and it's kind of outdated. We can say that in the education field, English was taken as a teaching language, was only emphasized, limited to the elite or the middle class people, and other people would return to vernacular due to the difficulty to listening and study in English. And for the regulative use, we can say that in Article 22, it grants English the equal administrative status alongside the Sinhala and Tamil. And according to Article 23 and 24, English, although it's not fully equal in status, people would use English frequently in the court proceeding. And in literature, in the past, English was associated with colonial legacy, and use of Sri Lanka English was stigmatized. But currently, writers would use Sri Lanka English without embarrassment or irony. We can say that the country or the people would accept its rising status as a kind of legitimate literary medium. And when we try to compare and contrast to English varieties, we can find much similarities. Both countries are multilingual, although Nepal enjoys much more linguistic diversity, and English is not taken as a national language in both countries, but it enjoys a high societal acceptance and a high practical importance, while English frequency is all linked to elite status. We can find policies thrift in both countries. And in the past, nationalism policies would deprioritize English, but currently, neoliberal reform would revival its emphasis on English. And about education, private school students with English as the teaching language show stronger proficiency, and parents in both countries push for English education in public schools. English is used in legal affairs and government operations in both countries. Also, similarly, English was used in the literature in both countries. After we analyze both field of the two countries, we can find that people's attitude toward English is not only linked to the linguistic field, but also reflect political, economic, and cultural aspects. And in conclusion, our group analyzed Nepal and Sri Lanka English from historical language status, social economies, and ideology influence, language varieties, and its linguistic impact. In the end, we would say that the evolving roles of English in both countries reflect a dynamic interplay of history, policy, identity, and global aspiration. That's all. Thank you.